I was halfway through reviewing a contract when my phone buzzed on the glass desk beside me. The skyline of Manhattan glittered through my floor-to-ceiling windows, and the late afternoon light spilled across the polished wood floors of my office. I smoothed the sleeve of my silk blouse, lifted the phone, and felt my stomach drop as I read the notification. Bother. Sold your worthless business. We needed cash. I froze. My manicured nails hovered above the screen, the faint hum of the city below suddenly distant. Worthless. That word used to slice me open every time it was thrown in my face, but now it made me want to laugh. Because the very worthless business they thought they had control over was the foundation of everything around me. This office, these contracts, the independence I'd bled for. I leaned back in my leather chair, the scent of my espresso still lingering in the air, and let out a slow breath. My brother really believed he could sell something that wasn't his to sell. My business wasn't worthless. It wasn't even theirs. Memories pressed at the edges of my mind. Years of being told I would never make it, that my ideas were foolish, that dreams like mine belonged in the trash. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the sting of their words on my skin. I didn't reply to the text. Not yet. Instead, I set the phone down gently, folded my arms across my chest, and allowed myself to remember where it all began. I was 20 when the walls of my parents' house stopped feeling like home. Back then, I didn't own silk blouses or sitting glass offices. I was just a girl with ink-stained hands, a second-hand laptop, and a heart full of impossible ideas. My brother, Adam, used to laugh at me from across the kitchen table. "Rachel, you're wasting your time. No one's going to pay for your silly little designs. You're not Steve Jobs. You're not even close." His words carried the smugness of someone who'd never had to fight for a dream. My parents rarely disagreed with him. My father would fold his newspaper, sigh, and shake his head. My mother's silence was worse, tight-lipped, eyes darting anywhere but me, as if she was embarrassed to even witness my ambition. I remember one night more than the others. I had just pitched the idea of starting a small digital branding business. I was trembling, holding a notebook filled with sketches, strategy notes, color palettes I had stayed up all night drawing. My hands shook as I slid it across the table. Adam flipped through the pages, smirking. This is garbage. You think companies are going to pay you for doodling? Rachel, you're delusional." The lump in my throat nearly suffocated me. My cheeks burned. My nails dug crescents into my palms beneath the table. And then my father said the words that changed everything. "Enough. This business nonsense ends tonight. You need a real plan, Rachel. College.
A job.
Stability. Stop embarrassing yourself." Tears pricked hot at my eyes. I excused myself before they could fall, running into the upstairs bathroom. I locked the door and leaned against the sink, shaking. Their voices echoed through the walls, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. That's when I reached into my pocket and felt the cool metal of the necklace my grandmother had given me 2 weeks earlier. A simple silver chain, with a tiny charm engraved. "Know your worth." She had pressed it into my hand quietly, away from the others. "Rachel," she whispered, "they may not see it yet, but you have something they'll never understand. Don't let them measure you by their small minds." I stared at the charm through blurred vision that night, and something hardened inside me. I wasn't going to beg them to believe in me anymore. The next morning, with trembling hands but steady resolve, I packed a duffel bag, tucked my grandmother's necklace under my shirt, and walked out the front door. The first weeks after I left home were brutal. I crashed on a friend's couch in Brooklyn, living out of my duffel bag. Every morning I'd wake up to the sound of traffic and the smell of burnt coffee drifting from the corner deli downstairs. I worked double shifts as a barista to cover rent, and every night I sat cross-legged on the floor with my battered laptop, sketching brand mock-ups, building sample websites, teaching myself coding from free tutorials. There were nights my fingers ached from typing, and mornings my eyes burned from staring at the screen until dawn. The only thing that kept me going was the necklace against my collarbone. Whenever doubt whispered that Adam was right, that my ideas were foolish, I'd press my fingers to the charm and remind myself, "Know your worth." My first break came in the most unexpected way. A customer at the cafe, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a kind smile, noticed me doodling logos on my order pad between lattes. She asked to see my work. Her name was Margaret Ellis, founder of a boutique PR firm. 2 weeks later, she became my first paying client. The project wasn't glamorous, just rebranding her company's presentation slides. But when she handed me that envelope with $300 inside, I swear I nearly cried. It wasn't about the money. It was proof. Proof that someone believed in what I could create. Margaret didn't just give me work, she gave me guidance. She became the mentor I hadn't known I needed. "Don't undersell yourself, Rachel," she told me one afternoon as we sat in her office, the city humming outside. "Your talent is rare. People will try to make you feel small. Don't let them set your price." Her words became my anchor. From there, it was a slow climb. Some clients ghosted me. Some demanded more work for less pay. Some laughed when they realized how young I was. I cried more than once into my pillow, questioning whether I was strong enough to keep going. But every rejection sharpened me. Every failure taught me something new. My first real win came a year later. A small tech startup hired me to design their brand identity. The check was enough to move out of the shared apartment and rent a tiny studio. I celebrated by buying a desk from IKEA and eating takeout sushi on the floor. Step by step, I grew. My name spread through word of mouth. Small startups turned into mid-sized companies. Late nights turned into successful launches. And slowly, the zeros on my invoices began to multiply. But I never told my family. On social media, I kept it minimal. Casual posts about freelance life, coffee shop photos, a generic update now, and then. I let them believe I was scraping by, barely surviving. A part of me wanted to show them, to scream my victories into their faces. But another part, a wiser part, knew silence was power. By the time I signed my first six-figure contract, I was no longer the trembling girl in the bathroom. I was Rachel Morgan, founder of Morgan Creative Group. And I built it all without them. The day my family finally showed up, I wasn't surprised. Adam's text had been the spark, but I knew it wouldn't end there. My brother never could resist a fight, especially when he thought he'd won something. It was a Friday evening when the elevator chimed outside my office. I was reviewing quarterly numbers on a wall-sized screen when my assistant's voice buzzed through the intercom. "Ms. Morgan, there are 3 people here to see you. They say they're family." For a moment, my pulse stuttered. I adjusted the cuff of my blazer, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and answered, "Send them in." The glass doors swung open, and there they were, my parents, standing stiff and awkward, and Adam, his smirk practically carved into his face. He stepped forward first, arms spread like he owned the place. "Rach," he said with that false warmth, "look at you. Still playing CEO in your little studio." I didn't correct him. Not yet. Instead, I let them enter. The click of my mother's heels echoed across the polished marble floors. Her eyes darted around, widening at the sight of the modern art on the walls, the sleek leather furniture, the glowing skyline just beyond the glass. "This is yours," she whispered, more to herself than to me. Adam scoffed. "Come on, Mom. This is probably rented. She's always been good at appearances." I smiled faintly, folding my arms. "Have a seat." They lowered themselves onto the Italian leather sofa, glancing at the gold-embossed company logo mounted behind my desk. Morgan Creative Group. My name, not theirs. Adam leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "So, listen. We did what we had to do. Sold that joke of a business you left behind. Honestly, you should thank us. It wasn't worth anything anyway. But hey, at least now we've got a little extra cash to work with." His words hit the air like a match to gasoline. I let the silence stretch, watching his confidence grow shakier by the second. My father cleared his throat. My mother smoothed her skirt, fidgeting. Finally, I rose from my chair. The soft click of my heels against the floor filled the room as I walked toward them. "You sold nothing," I said evenly, "because you never owned it. You couldn't sell what was never yours." Adam blinked, his smirk faltering. "What are you talking about?" I gestured toward the panoramic window, the city glittering beneath us. The worthless business you dismissed? It became this. I built it, brick by brick, client by client. Every contract on those shelves?
Mine.
Every dollar in this office? Earned. And I didn't do it with your help. I did it in spite of you. Their silence was deafening. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Adam shook his head, trying to laugh, but the sound rang hollow. This is impossible. You were a failure. You had nothing. I stepped closer, my voice steady, low. I had nothing because you all tried to convince me I was nothing. But you were wrong. Every late night, every rejection, every insult you threw my way, I turned it into fuel. And now, the business you mocked is worth more than you can even comprehend. I picked up a leather-bound portfolio from my desk and laid it gently on the table before them. Inside were contracts, million-dollar deals with corporations they'd recognize instantly. My mother's hand trembled as she touched the pages. Adam's face drained of color. My father looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Rachel, my mother whispered. We didn't know. I straightened, clasping the necklace hidden beneath my blouse. You didn't want to know. That's the difference. The power in the room shifted. For the first time, they weren't looking down on me. They were looking up. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small in front of them. They sat on my sofa, stunned and silent, while I stood above them, steady, composed, every bit the woman they never thought I could be. Adam finally broke the silence. Okay, fine. You did well. I get it. But, Rach, you know how hard things have been for us. You could help. You should help. We're family. Family. The word tasted bitter. I walked back to my desk, picked up the portfolio, and closed it with a sharp snap. You're right, I said. We are family. Which is exactly why I'm not going to hand you blank checks. If I do, nothing changes. And I'm done enabling the people who told me I'd never succeed. My father's brow furrowed. Rachel. I raised a hand, cutting him off. If you want my help, here are my conditions. I turned to Adam first. His smirk had vanished, replaced by unease. You mocked me for chasing a dream, yet you've never chased anything yourself. From now on, no more handouts. You get a job. A real one. Prove you can be responsible. Until then, not a dollar leaves my pocket for you. He opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't let him. If you can't respect me, at least respect yourself enough to build something of your own. Then I shifted to my parents. My mother's eyes were glossy, my father's expression unreadable. You always preach stability, safety, the right path. But you crushed me in the process. If you want my support now, here's what you'll do. Stop belittling dreams. Not just mine, anyone's. Encourage your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors' kids. Don't dismiss them because their paths don't look like yours. You don't get to smother potential anymore. My mother's lips trembled, and for once, she didn't defend herself. She only nodded. I let the weight of my words hang before I continued. I'll help you get out of debt, but only if you start therapy. As a family. Because money won't fix the poison we've carried all these years. And I won't sign a check until I see effort, real effort, to heal what's broken. Silence filled the room, heavier than before. Adam looked away, jaw clenched. My father's face flushed with a mix of pride and shame. My mother's tears spilled quietly onto her lap. I leaned against the desk, crossing my arms. This isn't punishment. It's growth. I don't want revenge. I want change. If you're willing to rise with me, I'll extend my hand. If not, then we go our separate ways. But understand this, I will never shrink myself again to fit into your expectations. The power was mine now, not because I had money, but because I finally knew my worth. And for the first time, I saw them realizing it too. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected began to happen. At first, I didn't believe it. Adam actually got a job. A modest one, entry-level at a small logistics firm, but it was the first time in years I saw him set an alarm and stick to a schedule. He didn't brag about it. He didn't smirk. He just worked. My parents, too, began to shift. They started attending family counseling. The first sessions were awkward. Old habits don't disappear overnight. But there was effort. My mother spoke about her silence, how she thought she was protecting me by not interfering. My father admitted his fear, that he pushed stability because he was terrified of failure, and he projected that fear onto me. I listened, and for the first time, I believed them. One evening, I sat alone in my office after a long day, the city glowing outside. I opened the drawer of my desk and pulled out the necklace my grandmother had given me, the one engraved with "Know Your Worth." I ran my thumb over the words, the silver warm from my touch. I remembered that night in the bathroom years ago, when I'd clutched this same charm with tears streaming down my face. Back then, it felt like a fragile lifeline. Now, it felt like a crown. I smiled, a tear slipping free, not of pain this time, but of gratitude. For the girl I was. For the woman I'd become. For the strength it took to walk away, and the grace it took to let them return. I wasn't naive. I knew our family would never be perfect. But it didn't have to be. Change, even in fragments, was still progress. And now, I finally had the power to set the terms, to demand respect, to protect my worth. I stood, slipped the necklace around my neck, and looked out at the skyline. My reflection in the glass stared back at me, steady, unflinching, whole. The girl they once called worthless no longer existed. And as I whispered into the quiet room, it wasn't for them. It was for me. They once called my dream worthless, but today I know my worth can never be sold.